I never thought I would be standing in the freezing snow outside my own house watching my sister-in-law laugh at me through the window, but that is exactly where I ended up right before I ruined her entire life. She was sipping my expensive wine and pointing at the deadbolt she had illegally hired a locksmith to change while my wife cried in the passenger seat of our truck. I remember looking at her smug face and feeling a rage so hot it almost melted the ice on the porch railing. She thought she had one. She thought because she was family she could just take what was mine and I would roll over like a good little dog. But she forgot one thing. I owned the deed to this place and I had a very rich, very aggressive neighbor who had been trying to buy this land for 5 years. So I did not call the cops. I did not break down the door. I walked back to my truck, wiped the fog off the window and made a phone call that would leave her homeless in less than an hour. It all started about 3 years ago when I finally saved up enough cash to buy a cabin in the mountains. This was not just a vacation home to me. It was my sanctuary. I worked 60 hours a week at a chemical plant, breathing in fumes and breaking my back just so I could have a place to escape the noise of the city. My wife Sarah and I spent every weekend up there fixing the roof and staining the deck and making it perfect. It was our happy place. Then there was my brother Dave. I love Dave, but the guy has no backbone. He married Jessica and honestly I do not know why. Jessica is the kind of woman who thinks the world owes her a living just for showing up. She has never worked a hard day in her life, but she always has the newest phone and the nicest clothes and a list of complaints a mile long. She is what you call a professional victim. If it rains on her birthday she sues the weatherman. So last month Jessica started dropping hints that she wanted to host her birthday weekend at my cabin. She did not ask. She hinted. She would say things like it sure would be nice to have a big space for my friends, or I bet the hot tub is great this time of year. I ignored her. I knew how she treated other people's property. The last time she borrowed my car she returned it with an empty tank and a scratch on the bumper and told me I should be grateful she drove it so the battery did not die. Finally Dave called me up begging. He sounded tired. He always sounds tired these days. He said, "Look man, she is really on my case about this. Can we just use the cabin for the weekend? I promise we will clean up. I promise we will respect it. Just 2 nights." I wanted to say no. Every instinct in my gut screamed no. But Sarah is too nice. She touched my arm and said, "Let them have it, honey. Maybe it will make peace in the family. Maybe she will finally stop bad-mouthing us at Thanksgiving if we do her this one favor." So I agreed. I told Dave they could use it for the weekend of the 10th. That was it. 2 days. Friday to Sunday. I gave them the code to the lockbox and told them the rules. No smoking inside. No loud parties that would disturb the neighbors. And absolutely no pets because Sarah is allergic to cats and Jessica has 3 of them. Dave swore up and down they would follow the rules. He sounded so relieved. I felt good about being the bigger person. I thought I was doing a nice thing for my brother. I was an idiot. The weekend of the 10th came and went. I did not hear from them. I assumed no news was good news. Then the next weekend rolled around. Sarah and I had planned a romantic getaway, just the 2 of us. I had bought steaks and a nice bottle of bourbon and we were looking forward to sitting by the fire and forgetting about work. We packed up the truck and drove the 4 hours up the mountain. The roads were bad. It had been snowing all week and the wind was howling through the trees. By the time we turned onto my gravel driveway it was pitch black and 10 degrees below zero. I saw the lights on in the cabin as soon as we pulled up. My stomach dropped. I thought maybe I had left them on or maybe a timer had malfunctioned. But then I saw the cars. There were 4 cars parked in my driveway. One was Dave's sedan. The other 3 I did not recognize. One was a beat-up SUV that was leaking oil all over my fresh gravel. I put the truck in park and looked at Sarah. She looked confused. She said, "Did they get the dates wrong?" I did not say anything. I just felt the anger starting to boil in my chest. I got out of the truck and the cold wind hit me like a slap in the face. I marched up the steps to the front porch. I could hear music thumping from inside. It was loud bass heavy music. The kind that shakes the windows. I punched in the code on the electronic lock. It beeped red. Error. I tried it again thinking maybe my fingers were just cold. Beeped red. Error. I tried it a third time. Nothing. Then I looked closely at the door. The handle was shiny. It was new. The deadbolt looked different too. My heart started pounding in my ears. I banged on the door. I did not knock polite. I pounded with my fist like I was the police. Open the door, Dave. I shouted. Open the door right now. The music stopped. I heard footsteps. I expected Dave to open it looking sheepish and apologizing. Instead, the curtain on the window next to the door slid back and there was Jessica. She was wearing a silk robe and holding a glass of red wine. My red wine. The vintage bottle I had been saving for our anniversary. She looked at me and she did not look scared. She looked annoyed. She unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door just a crack, keeping the security chain on. A blast of warm air and the smell of stale cigarettes hit me. What is your problem, Jake? She said. You are interrupting the vibe. I stared at her. My jaw was practically on the floor. What is my problem? This is my house, Jessica. What are you doing here? You were supposed to leave last Sunday. She rolled her eyes like I was a toddler asking for a cookie before dinner. Oh, relax. We decided to extend the trip. The vibes were just too good to leave. Plus my friends came up from the city and they loved the place, so I told them we could stay a while. You told them. I sputtered. You told them. Jessica, this is not a hotel. You cannot just decide to stay. And who changed my locks? She took a sip of the wine and smirked. Oh, that. Yeah, the old code was too hard to remember, so I had a locksmith come out and put in a smart lock that works with my phone. It is much more convenient. You should thank me. I upgraded your security. I saw red. I mean literal red spots dancing in front of my eyes. You changed the locks on my house. That is illegal. You have 5 minutes to get your stuff and get out. I mean it, Jessica. 5 minutes or I am calling the cops. She laughed. A cold, high-pitched laugh that made my skin crawl. Go ahead, call them. Tell them your family is visiting and you are trying to kick them out in a blizzard. See who they side with. Besides, possession is 9/10 of the law or whatever. We are settled in. We have food in the fridge. We have guests. You are not throwing us out tonight. I looked past her into the living room. I saw strangers sitting on my leather couch with their feet on the coffee table. I saw a cat sitting on the mantel knocking over a framed photo of me and Sarah. I saw smoke hanging in the air. Sarah walked up behind me shivering in her coat. Honey, what is going on? Why are they still here? Jessica looked at Sarah and sneered. Oh, look, the princess is here. Sorry, sweetie, no room at the inn. Why do not you guys go find a Motel 6 or something? This is a private party. Then she slammed the door in my face. I heard the deadbolt click. I heard her laughing to her friends. I heard the music start back up. I stood there for a second just processing the sheer audacity. She had stolen my house. She had damaged my property. And now she was locking me out in a snowstorm. I turned around and looked at Sarah. She was crying silently, tears freezing on her cheeks. She said, Jake, I want to go home. Please let us just go. I put my arm around her and walked her back to the truck. I got her inside and cranked up the heater. I was shaking, but not from the cold. I was shaking with a kind of cold calculation I had never felt before. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the cabin. I could see their silhouettes moving around inside. They were having a great time. They thought I was powerless. They thought family meant they could do whatever they wanted and I would just take it because I was the nice guy. The responsible one. But I was done being the nice guy. I looked at the house next door. It was about a quarter mile down the road, but through the bare winter trees I could see the lights were on. That house belonged to Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson was a developer from the city who had retired up here. He was a shark. He had made his millions buying distressed properties and flipping them. He was aggressive, mean, and incredibly wealthy. And he had been trying to buy my cabin for years. My property sat on a ridge with the best view of the valley. Henderson owned the land on both sides of me, but he wanted the middle piece to build a massive lodge. He had offered me double what the place was worth last year, but I turned him down because I loved the cabin. I remembered what he told me the last time I saw him. He said, "Jake, every man has a price. When you are ready to sell, you call me. Day or night. I will have the cash in your hand before the ink dries." I looked at my phone. I had his number saved. I looked back at the cabin. I saw Jessica walk past the window again. She was dancing. I did not hesitate. I dialed the number. It rang twice. "Hello." A gruff voice answered. "Mr. Henderson. This is Jake. From next door." There was a pause. Then a chuckle. "Well, hello, Jake. To what do I owe the pleasure? Finally realize you are sitting on a gold mine." I took a deep breath. "You still want the place?" "I am listening. I will sell it to you. Tonight. Right now. But there is a condition." He laughed again. "I like conditions." "Name it." "You have to take possession immediately. Like within the hour. And you have to deal with the squatters inside." The line went quiet for a second. Then his voice dropped an octave. "Squatters. My sister-in-law and her deadbeat friends. They changed the locks. They are trashing the place. I am locked out. I want to sell it as is where is. I walk away and it is your problem." I heard a sound that sounded like a lighter clicking and a long exhale of smoke. He sounded interested. Very interested. He said, "So you are telling me I get the land, the cabin, and the pleasure of evicting some trespassers all in one night? Jake, you are making my Christmas early. What is the price?" I asked. "Same as my last offer. 300,000. Cash. I will wire it to your account in the morning. We can sign a quitclaim deed on my kitchen table right now." 300,000 was a lot of money. It was enough to pay off our mortgage back home and buy a new piece of land somewhere else. Somewhere far away from Jessica. I looked at Sarah. She was watching me, wiping her eyes. I covered the phone. "I am selling it," I whispered. Her eyes went wide. "What?" "I am selling the cabin. To Henderson. Right now." "But Jake," she said. "You love this place." "I love you more," I said. "And I hate her enough to burn this whole thing down. This is the only way to get her out tonight without going to jail myself." She looked at the cabin, then back at me. She nodded slowly. "Do it." I uncovered the phone. "Deal. I am coming over." I put the truck in gear and drove the quarter mile to Henderson's massive log mansion. The whole way there my heart was racing. I was selling my dream. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized the dream was already ruined. Jessica had tainted it. If I kept it, I would always remember her smug face in the window. I would always worry about her breaking in again. No. It was time to cut the cancer out. Henderson met us at the door. He was a big guy wearing a flannel shirt that probably cost more than my car. He ushered us into his office, which smelled like expensive cigars and leather. He had a printer going already. I typed up a simple bill of sale and a quitclaim deed. He said, "It is legally binding enough to get the sheriff involved immediately. My lawyer will handle the official title transfer on Monday, but as of the moment you sign this paper, this property is mine. And in this state I have very specific rights regarding intruders on my property." He smiled a smile that was all teeth. It was a terrifying smile. I almost felt bad for Jessica. Almost. I read the paper. It was simple. I transfer all rights and ownership to Robert Henderson. I picked up the pen. My hands shook a little. I thought about the summers on the deck. I thought about the first time I brought Sarah there. Then I thought about the cigarette smoke. The cat on the mantel. The deadbolt. I signed my name. Henderson signed his. He opened a drawer and pulled out a checkbook. He wrote a check for $10,000. "This is the earnest money," he said, handing it to me. "Just so you have some walking around cash for the weekend. The rest hits your bank Monday morning." He stood up and walked to a gun cabinet in the corner. He pulled out a large ring of keys and a flashlight. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number. "Sheriff Miller. Bob Henderson here. Yeah. I have a situation at my new property next door. I have got a group of intruders who have broken in and are vandalizing the place. I am going over there now to secure the premises. Yeah, you might want to send a couple of units. These folks seem volatile." He hung up and looked at me. "You two might want to stick around for the show. But stay in your truck. I do not want you liable for anything that happens next." We drove back to my driveway. I parked at the very end near the road. Henderson pulled his massive black truck right up to the front porch, blocking Dave's car in. He turned on his high beams, flooding the cabin with blinding white light. I saw the curtain twitch. Jessica looked out, squinting against the light. Henderson got out of his truck. He did not look like a family member coming to visit. He looked like a tank. He walked up the steps and pounded on the door. The sound echoed through the valley. "Open up," he roared. "This is private property." I watched from the safety of my cab. Sarah squeezed my hand. The door opened. Jessica stood there looking furious. She shouted something I could not hear over the wind, but I saw her pointing a finger at Henderson. She probably thought it was me or one of my friends. Henderson did not back down. He pulled a piece of paper out of his jacket pocket. The deed. He shoved it in her face. I saw her recoil. She looked confused. She grabbed the paper and looked at it. Then I saw the color drain from her face even from this distance. She started yelling. She was pointing at my truck at the end of the driveway. She was screaming that it was her brother's house. Henderson just crossed his arms. He was a mountain of a man. He said something calm and low. Jessica tried to slam the door. Henderson stuck his boot in the jamb. He pushed the door open with one hand. He stepped inside. A minute later the music stopped. Then the lights in the living room went out. Then I saw blue lights flashing on the main road. The sheriff was coming. I rolled down my window just a crack so I could hear. I heard screaming. Not happy screaming. Panicked screaming. "Get your trash and get off my land," Henderson bellowed. His voice carried perfectly in the cold air. I saw Jessica run out onto the porch. She was not wearing her coat. She was holding her phone, trying to make a call. Probably to Dave, who was hiding somewhere inside. Two sheriff cruisers pulled into the driveway, lights swirling. Deputies got out, hands on their holsters. I saw Jessica run down the steps toward the cops, waving her arms. She was playing the victim again. She was probably telling them a crazy man broke in. The sheriff walked right past her and shook Henderson's hand. They knew each other. Small towns. The sheriff looked at the paper Henderson showed him. He nodded. Then he turned to Jessica. I watched as the sheriff pointed to the cars. He was telling them to leave. Jessica stomped her foot. She pointed at the house. She was throwing a tantrum. The sheriff shook his head. He reached for his handcuffs. Sarah gasped. Are they arresting her? I do not know. I said. But I hope so. They did not arrest her right then. But they made them leave. I watched as the deputies went inside and dragged everyone out. Dave's friends looked terrified. They were stumbling out in the snow carrying their bags looking like they had been caught robbing a bank. Dave came out last. He looked defeated. He looked over at my truck. He knew I was there. He hung his head. Jessica was the last one to the cars. She was screaming at the deputies. She was screaming at Henderson. She was trying to get back into the house to get her wine. Henderson stood in the doorway like a bouncer. He blocked her path. You have 5 minutes to get your vehicles off my property before I have them towed. He yelled. They scrambled. It was chaotic. They were throwing sleeping bags and coolers into the cars. Jessica was crying now, real ugly crying. She slipped on the ice and fell into a snowbank. Nobody helped her up. Not even Dave. As they drove past my truck, I rolled down the window all the way. Jessica was in the passenger seat of Dave's car. She looked at me. Her face was a mask of shock and hatred. I waved. Just a little wave. She screamed something at me, but the window was up. I watched their taillights disappear down the mountain road. I looked at the cabin one last time. Henderson was standing on the porch turning off the lights. He waved at me. I put the truck in reverse. I sold it, Sarah. I said. It is gone. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. It is okay. We will build a new one. A better one. And nobody will have the key but us. We drove home in silence, but it was a good silence. I felt lighter. I had lost the cabin, but I had gained something much more valuable. I had finally drawn a line in the sand. But the story did not end there. Because when you sell a house to a guy like Henderson with all the furniture and personal items still inside, things get complicated. Especially when some of those personal items belong to your entitled sister-in-law and she wants them back. The next morning my phone started ringing at 7 a.m. It was Dave. Jake, what did you do? He sounded panicked. I sold the house, Dave. I told you. Yeah, but Jessica's jewelry is still up there. Her laptop is there. Her purse is there. We left in such a hurry we forgot half our stuff. We went back this morning and the gate is locked. There is a sign that says no trespassing, violators will be shot. I took a sip of my coffee. Well, Dave, that sounds like a problem between you and Mr. Henderson. It is his house now. But he won't let us in. He says anything left inside is part of the sale. He says it is abandoned property. Jake, her engagement ring was on the nightstand. I felt a little twinge of guilt, but then I remembered the deadbolt. I remembered her laughing. I leaned back in my chair. I guess she should have thought about that before she changed my locks. I said. I hung up the phone. The war had just begun. And I was ready for round 2. You would think that losing a house she did not own would humble a woman like Jessica, but you would be wrong. If anything, it made her crazier. About 2 hours after I hung up on Dave, I heard a car screech into my driveway back in the city. I looked out the window and saw Dave's sedan. It was covered in mud and road salt and looking like it had been driven by a maniac. Jessica did not even knock. She leaned on the doorbell until the chiming sound inside my head felt like a drill. I walked to the door and opened it. She looked like a wreck. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a rat's nest, and she was wearing sweatpants that looked like she had slept in them, which she probably had. Dave was standing behind her looking like he wanted the ground to open up and swallow him whole. You fix this. She screamed. She did not say hello. She just pointed a manicured finger in my face. You call that psychopath right now and tell him to let me get my things. I leaned against the doorframe and crossed my arms. I cannot do that, Jessica. It is not my house anymore. I told you. I sold it. You sold it illegally. She shrieked. You cannot sell a house with people inside it. Actually, I can. I said calmly. I checked the laws. Since you were not a tenant and you had no lease, you were technically trespassing. And since I sold it as is, the new owner took possession of everything on the property. That includes the furniture, the appliances, and apparently your engagement ring. Her face went pale. That ring is worth $15,000. I looked at Dave. He looked away. I knew for a fact Dave had not spent 15 grand on a ring. Dave made 40 grand a year. But I did not say anything. I shrugged. Well, then I guess you better ask Mr. Henderson nicely. But knowing him, he is probably calculating the cost of the damage you caused. What damage? We did not do any damage. You drilled a hole in the front door to install a lock I did not authorize. I said. That is destruction of property. You smoked inside a non-smoking home. That is smoke damage. And from what Henderson told me on the phone this morning, your friends left burn marks on the hardwood floors. She sputtered. She tried to come up with an excuse, but she had nothing. Listen. I said. You wanted the cabin. You took the cabin. You acted like you owned it. Well, now you are dealing with the real consequences of ownership. If you want your stuff back, you deal with Henderson. Do not come back here. I started to close the door. Jessica slammed her hand against it, holding it open. She looked me dead in the eye. I will sue you. I will sue you for every penny you have. I will tell everyone you stole my inheritance. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh. Jessica, you do not have an inheritance. And you do not have a case. Now get off my porch before I call the cops on you for the second time in 24 hours. She looked at me like she wanted to hit me. But Sarah stepped up beside me. Sarah is small, but she has a look that can freeze water. She just stared at Jessica. Jessica pulled her hand back. She turned around and stomped to the car. Dave mouthed, "I am sorry," to me before getting in the driver's seat. I thought that would be the end of it for the day, but Henderson was just getting started. That afternoon my phone buzzed. It was a picture message from Henderson. It was a photo of an invoice. A very large invoice. He had itemized everything. Lock replacement, $500. Professional deep cleaning for smoke removal, $2,000. Hardwood floor refinishing, $4,500. Emergency legal fees, $1,500. Trash removal, $300. The total was nearly $9,000. Below the photo was a text, *, tell your brother he can pick up his personal effects once this bill is paid in full. I charge $100 a day for storage starting tomorrow, *. I forwarded the text to Dave with a simple note, "Good luck." I did not hear from them for a week. Sarah and I used that time to look for a new piece of land. We found a nice plot near a lake about an hour south. It was quieter. No fancy lodges next door. Just trees and water. We used the money Henderson gave us to buy it cash. But the drama up on the mountain was not over. Apparently Jessica tried to get a lawyer. I heard this from my cousin, who heard it from his mom. Jessica went to 3 different attorneys in town. As soon as they heard the name Robert Henderson, they all politely declined the case. Nobody wanted to go up against Henderson. He had a team of sharks on retainer and enough money to drag a court case out until the sun burned out. So Jessica did the only thing she knew how to do. She got desperate. 2 weeks after the eviction, I got a call from the sheriff up in the mountains. "Mr. Miller. This is Sheriff Miller. No relation." I chuckled. "Hey, Sheriff. What can I do for you?" "Well, I just thought you would want to know since you're family. We picked up your sister-in-law last night." My stomach dropped. "Picked her up? Like arrested her?" "Yes, sir. Criminal trespassing and attempted burglary." I sat down on the couch. You have got to be kidding me. She tried to sneak back onto the property around 2 a.m. The sheriff said. She cut the lock on the gate. She made it all the way to the porch. But she forgot that Mr. Henderson has motion sensor cameras everywhere. He saw her the second she stepped over the property line. He was waiting for her on the porch with his shotgun and 2 of my deputies. I rubbed my temples. Is she okay? She is fine. Just a lot of crying and screaming. She kept yelling about her ring. I sighed. Sheriff, what is going on with that ring? She says it is worth 15 grand. The sheriff laughed. Yeah, about that. Henderson had it appraised. He wanted to know the value in case he had to bond it out or something. The jeweler in town took one look at it and laughed. It is cubic zirconia. Nice setting, but the stone is glass. Worth maybe $200 on a good day. I froze. Fake. The ring was fake. All this time she had been lording that ring over everyone, acting like she was royalty because she had a rock on her finger. And it was glass. Does she know? I asked. Henderson told her while we were putting her in the squad car. The sheriff said. I think that hurt her more than the handcuffs. I thanked the sheriff and hung up. I sat there in silence for a long time. It was tragic, really. Jessica had destroyed her relationship with us, ruined her husband's credit, and now she had a criminal record, all for a fake ring and a weekend of partying in a house that was not hers. I looked over at Sarah. She was looking at blueprints for a small cabin on our new lake lot. She looked happy. Peaceful. I walked over and kissed the top of her head. What is that for? She asked, smiling. Just for being you, I said. And for never asking for a diamond ring. She laughed. I would rather have a kayak anyway. Jessica spent the night in jail. Dave had to bail her out. I heard later that Henderson agreed to drop the burglary charges if they paid the $9,000 for the damages and signed a restraining order promising to never come within 500 feet of his property again. They had to sell Dave's car and max out 3 credit cards to pay him. The last I heard, Dave finally moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Alone. He finally grew that backbone. He told Jessica he was done. He could handle the debt, but he could not handle the entitlement. Jessica is living with her mom now. She still posts on social media sometimes. Usually vague statuses about how people are jealous of her success and how family betrays you. I do not comment. I just scroll past. Last weekend Sarah and I drove up to our new land. We set up a tent and made a campfire. It was freezing cold, but the fire was warm. We drank cheap wine out of plastic cups and watched the stars. It was not a fancy mansion. It did not have a hot tub or smart locks. But it was ours. And as I sat there poking the fire, I realized that selling that cabin was the best decision I ever made. Sometimes you have to burn a bridge to stop the enemy from following you. And sometimes, if you are lucky, the light from that burning bridge helps you find your way to something better. Mr. Henderson sent me a Christmas card that year. It was a picture of him standing on the deck of my old cabin holding a cigar. He looked happy. Inside he had written a short note. Asterisk, thanks for the view, Jake. And thanks for the entertainment. If you ever have any more family members you want to get rid of, give me a call, asterisk. I put the card on the mantel right next to the picture of me and Sarah. I looked at the card and smiled. No thanks, Bob. I said to the empty room. I think I am all out of toxic relatives. And I plan to keep it that way.